Testing. 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. All right, now we're back on the block and we're taking stock of the movies of yesteryear at Backlook Cinema, the podcast. I'm your host, Zo. That's Z-O or Z-O if you're outside of the U.S. It's the 90th episode. Thank you for downloading or streaming. We really appreciate it. We're going to talk about the movies of yesteryear that we love to watch from the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. If you like what you're about to hear, then please take the time out to offer some support by giving us a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can also share our show on social media. Speaking of which, please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. You can find the details in the show notes. And now, you may have heard of this young man on your airwaves. He has a podcast where he talks about all of your favorite movies, the heavy hitters from Marvel, the DCEU, the Star Wars. He goes through sci-fi and fantasy. This young man is going into the space hard. And now may I introduce to you the host of the Cobbs Corner Podcast, Morgan Cobbs. Welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Zo.
I really appreciate you being here. Once again, I have forgotten the applause button that you would have heard, and it sounds like this. That's my applause button. I'm sorry about that. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good.
Awesome.
Doing good.
So we was chit-chatting earlier, and we was talking about some of the things that you were up to. One of the things that you had told me in our correspondence is that you were actually going to be scheduled to do a slam poetry. Now, does this mean that you're engaged in the slam poetry, or you were just going to go listen to it?
Well, I mean, we have a club on campus called Slam, and I forget what that exactly stands for, but it's kind of just like an open mic night that we have like every Friday night. It used to be on Wednesdays, now it's on Fridays. I don't really do poetry. I kind of just would sometimes like pick a song and just like, I don't know, do my cover of it usually, and just kind of dig through like my discography and like, the music I listen to, just kind of pick a song, I'll sing it. But, usually people do like poetry, or we'll do like prompts for the crowd, and like, they'll kind of choose sides. We actually have some pretty interesting, pretty thought-provoking conversations at Slam usually. Yeah, that's Friday nights, and we call it Twisted Cafe is the name of the place. It's at the Student Center.
Okay.
Here on campus for those in the area.
So you mentioned a campus. So what campus are you attending right now?
I'm currently attending the University of Bridgeport in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Yeah.
Awesome. So what are you studying at the University of Bridgeport?
I am studying mechanical engineering.
Nice. That is the same field as one of my icons, Bill Nye, the science guy. He is also a mechanical engineer. See, people get fooled because, he does a lot of science information videos and TV shows and whatnot, but his field is actually mechanical engineering. So you're
also it's funny that we're reviewing Rocky today. I was going to say Dolph Lundgren, actually. Drago, he was a civil engineer, I think, before he was an actor. I want to say his field was civil.
Yeah, I forgot. I thought he was like a physicist, but I know he's brilliant. He's a very smart fellow. It's like unassuming because he's gigantic, right. and he's still, even in his later age, he's still very physically adept, but he's also quite intelligent. And so at this slam poetry night, so people aren't just doing poetry, they're singing or playing instruments. Is that what the idea is?
Yeah, the singing, playing instruments. We actually have a few local, actual rap artists. They'll so we have we have a few local artists that attend the school. So they'll, sing one of their songs, whether if it's an original piece, or in my case, I just mainly do covers of other music groups across different genres. So yeah, or slam poetry. Or also we have like actual artists who will like if they like paint something, they'll show it at the slam poetry. It's really just kind of, all art is welcome. We got actual painters, we got poets, we got musicians. It's one really fun time. Yeah.
Awesome. So what's the main genre of music that you like to cover?
The first song I had covered was "Remember the Name" by Fort Minor, just because that's kind of just my pre-game song, like before any workout. Like I'm usually in the gym most days, so like usually before workout, I'll listen to "Remember the Name" by Fort Minor. I've also done "Californication" by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So mostly anything, I guess. Maybe also rap, rock, sort of like just last week I did Youth of the Nation by POD. POD, they had that song Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you've seen the movie Here Comes the Boom, then yeah. Like that same band, they had a song back in like 2001 called Youth of the Nation, which is about like, youth violence and like depression and like
Unfortunately, unfortunately, I am not familiar, but it sounds cool. It sounds like it gets the body going.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like I'm thinking about that scene in I can't remember now. It's all gone. It's all gone. I can't. Will Ferrell. There was a movie that Will Ferrell was in, and he was talking about it gets the body going, and he was talking about that.
Right.
The ice skater thing that they were doing.
No, because like for a second I was thinking semi-pro. I'm like, no, that's not.
No, not that one.
No, it might have been Blades of Glory.
Yeah, Blades of Glory. Yeah,
Blades of Glory. I haven't seen that movie, but I know that line is in the song. I don't know if I can actually say the title.
It's all right. It's this program is rated E for everybody. Go ahead.
Okay.
You can say whatever you want on here.
There's the song by Jay-Z and Kanye, "Niggas in Paris."
Right.
Right. And there's the line from that that song. It's like, I don't know what that means. No one knows what it means.
Right, but it gets the body going. Right.
Like I know that line, but I don't know like the full context because I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah. I don't know if I've seen it. I can't remember if I've seen it or not. It's like it could be because that part is featured on the marketing, and so I remember seeing that commercial over and over again. But I can't remember if I've actually seen the movie. I need to go and check that one out. So, what made you want to start a podcast?
Well, I started this podcast this year. Actually, I started it in like May, and it was an idea that I had for a while. I'm just a huge cinema fan. Like I'm a huge Marvel fan. I guess mainly like Marvel, DC, Star Wars. Like that has just been like my bread and butter. Like I've just always been really into like science fiction, anything with outer space. Superheroes. Like I remember, I think my earliest memory of like a superhero film. I remember. Let's see. I'm trying not to make you feel old.
No, that's fine. I already know. I already know that I'm old. It's totally fine.
My earliest memory of like a superhero film, 2004. I was 3 years old. I saw The Incredibles in theaters, and I remember thinking that this was like the best film ever. I remember seeing the 2005 Fantastic Four, which now I watched that movie now that it's available in like streaming format. And it's like, I'm looking back, I'm like, this CGI is terrible. Like, what was going on in 2005? It's like, but and also like you look at other movies like from that same time period, it's like you could have done 10 times better. 20th Century Fox. This is why Disney owns you now.
Yeah.
Okay, but I remember, but at the same time, I remember when I was like, when I'm like 5-6 years old, I'm thinking like the Fantastic Four. That's like the first family of Marvel. Like this is the best thing ever. Like this is the pinnacle of superhero movies. Like I remember I also watched the Sam Raimi Spider-Man, the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man on VHS. Like I think the first time I watched that movie was on VHS. I saw Spider-Man 2 in theaters when I was 3. That same year, 2004. It's still to this day one of my favorite superhero movies. Maybe I'm just blind with nostalgia, but I just feel like the way in which director Sam Raimi, who coincidentally came back to direct Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which was phenomenal. The way that he was able to humanize Peter Parker as this character who, he's kind of a nerd, he's, socially awkward, and, he gains these abilities to become Spider-Man, and him, the same day that the closest thing he ever had to a father, like he didn't grow up really knowing who his father was, who his mother was, which is something that I think Sam Raimi made the conscious decision not to include in the movies. In the movies, like we never actually like see Peter's parents, but like his father figure, is trying to tell him, like with great power comes great responsibility, which diehard Marvel fans will know. In Amazing Fantasy issue number 15, I'm kind of geeking out on you.
That's all right. You're fine.
Amazing Fantasy number 15 in 1962, actually 60 years ago, Spider-Man celebrating 60 years in the comics. Uncle Ben is only on the page for like 2 panels. He gets killed off screen, and then at the end of that particular issue, there was Stan's soapbox, and he would have like a blurb at the end of each issue where he would actually talk about like the real world and like what are the kind of social and like racial and political things that were dealt with in that issue, and kind of a message to the reader. And in Stan's soapbox, he says, "With great power, there must also come great responsibility." So that's the direct quote that was said by Stan Lee himself. Uncle Ben never actually says that in the comics. And so realizing that we can see a bit of ourselves in these heroes, I think that's something that the DC movies, you couldn't really see bits and pieces of like yourself, and you couldn't really see the humanity in guys like, these gods like, Green Lantern and like Superman, Wonder Woman, at least back in those days, like in the 60s and 70s. So that was the main Marvel DC rivalry that I think on screen has been phenomenal. We even see that a lot of these villains, especially from the Sam Raimi trilogy, they weren't people who just had like malice in their heart. They weren't just a generic cookie cutter, villain. The MCU has a ton of villains with justifiable motives. I actually just uploaded an episode last Saturday, my review of Black Panther, and I talk about Killmonger and how he had become a villain in spite of himself. Like he had, his own father was taken from him at a young age. He was left to knowing that he was Wakandan, knowing that there's this advanced technological country in the center of Africa that's hiding from the rest of the world. And him growing up in Oakland, California, and seeing nothing but police brutality and gang violence, and knowing that there's a Wakanda could be helping African Americans living in poverty. It's that theme of forgiveness and patient outreach versus revenge, and it's like, how do we correct the mistakes of those who came before us? When mom and dad die, they pass their sins to their children. How do we account for the mistakes of those who came before us? Which I think is a very real world theme. Like Killmonger loses, but he doesn't lose entirely. I mean, he's the villain. So it's like in the end he loses, but we all have to kind of feel for him and see where he was coming from. And post-credit scene, we see T'Challa go before the United Nations in the exact same building that his father was killed in. I think he goes to Vienna, Austria, the same exact building that his father was murdered in. And he announces that they're going to open their borders to the world, that are going to share the technology, share their resources. So it's that forgiveness and, moving forward. And then the movie ends with All the Stars by Kendrick Lamar featuring SZA, as there's like the little boy who asks like, who are you? And then the credits roll. That song All the Stars, it's essentially saying like, now all the stars are closer for the next generation of kids growing up in this neighborhood. They're not going to have to go through what Killmonger had to go through, but perhaps his struggle was necessary. Perhaps he had to endure that hardship as a wake-up call to Wakanda and to the world about, the the struggles of different people. What was your question?
No, that's fine. That's fine.
But yeah,
You
I guess
basically
that's
answered it abundantly. So,
right.
what are some of your other interests? We know you like the superhero movies and Star Wars. So,
Yeah.
from that, what other sci-fi and fantasy things that you like to pay attention to, and that you're probably going to do episodes in your podcast for?
Well, I actually I'm a huge Quentin Tarantino film fan. Like I don't really know what genre he fits into. I mean, action, adventure, period piece. Like,
Right.
coincidentally, actually, this year, October 8th marks 30 years since Reservoir Dogs came out. Came out on October 8th, 1992. Let that sink in. Yeah, I mean, I guess Quentin Tarantino, he's definitely like one of my favorite directors outside of the realm of like Marvel and Star Wars and DC, which for me is, fun. It's got its place, but like sometimes I want, a suspense thriller. I want the story that's like told out of order, and like especially Pulp Fiction, which thank God I have a DVD player, because I found at the library on campus that they have like a collector's edition of Pulp Fiction, which I will definitely be checking out soon. Uh, but yeah, I guess the way that story is told out of order, and Samuel L. Jackson's character Julius, like his transformation, saying, I'm leaving the life after after that apartment scene, after that apartment scene, and I guess Quentin Tarantino, he's just one of my favorite film directors. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I loved it. I loved that film. It was missing Samuel L. Jackson.
Right. Right.
I mean, he was in. I feel like he's been in every Tarantino film except I want to say except Reservoir Dogs, Death Proof, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He was the piano player in Kill Bill Volume 2,
Oh, I didn't
Rufus,
know
who
that.
we only see him for like 2 minutes
Right.
on screen, and he was the narrator in Inglourious Bastards, so he was technically in that movie.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Um,
So,
but yeah,
what movies have you seen lately?
lately I actually saw, and I'm going back to see it in theaters again tomorrow. Bullet Train, Bullet Train, which is I think directed by the same guy who directed Deadpool. So it was like as I was watching the movie, I felt like I was watching. It's like a Tarantino film and like Deadpool and John Wick, like all wrapped into one. It's like there's like backstory. The story's like told out of order. There's a few fourth wall breaks. Like I felt like I'm watching like the elements of like all my favorite, different genres like in one.
Yeah,
And
it
the entire
was
movie takes place on a train. So
it was definitely a fascinating movie. I've seen I've tried to like get back into the theater, so I've seen a number of movies. So I've seen Bullet Train. Bullet Train was fantastic. Just seen I saw, what was that called? A Thousand Years of Longing, which was not as good as I hoped it would be. But
yeah,
so I
I
think
heard
that kind
about
of
that
split the
movie.
audience. So there are a lot of people that liked it and a lot of people it wasn't for whom it wasn't great. And then there was Woman King. I just saw that was the last movie we
Woman
saw.
King, yeah,
Woman
Woman
King
King.
was
I've been meaning to see that movie. Yeah, that one, and I might check out the new movie with Florence Pugh and Harry Styles. Don't
something darling.
worry, darling, something like that. Yeah. So I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah,
There's
was
a lot of
he?
outside controversy concerning that film too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm wondering. I'm wondering. It's like there's certain movies. I'm wondering like, is it safe for me to like review this? Am I gonna get like shut down? Like, so
Nah,
am I gonna anger some
no,
people?
you're a TikToker.
Like,
TikTokers don't get shut down.
TikTokers don't get shut
No, not
down.
TikTokers. I meant podcasters. Podcasters don't get shut down.
Podcasting.
Yeah,
Oh
TikTokers
well,
maybe get shut down, but podcasters, you don't get shut down. So anyway,
unfortunately.
moving right along.
Spider-Man No Way Home, the more fun version I saw in theaters last two Saturdays ago.
Okay.
I saw that one in theaters.
Oh, that's right. They did release a new version. I forgot all about that one.
Yeah, it's a new version, some new scenes. It was fun. It was exciting.
Right.
Yeah.
So, thank you again for joining us. Do you want to let people know where they can find you on social media or where they can find your podcast?
Well, you can find my podcast. I'm on pretty much every major listening platform. I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Stitcher, Radio Public. I think those are like the major ones I can think of off the top of my head right now. But wherever you listen to your podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts, I should be available. And you can follow me on Instagram at Cobbs, my last name Cobbs _corner _podcast. And then on TikTok, all one word, Cobbs Corner Podcast, all lowercase, just the name of the podcast. On TikTok, that's all the social media I really have in Instagram and TikTok.
Okay. All right. That's awesome. That's it for the interview portion of the show. Next, we have a word from Beth and Kirsten from the Made for TV movie podcast. And if you need to find them, you can just give them a Goog, as they say, and you can just type in #MFVMC podcast in the Google search, and you'll find them there.
Hello, everyone. I'm Beth.
And I'm Kirsten, and we are the hosts of the Made for TV Movie Club podcast. Beth, we've been friends for a long time.
We sure have, Kay, since before Rachel kissed Ross for the first time.
It's true, and since we share a love of all things TV, we decided to team up to review our favorite TV movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
You don't need to watch the movie. We did that for you.
You can find us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, including Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Deezer, and iHeartRadio.
And find us on our socials.
Join us in our Facebook group, Made for TV Movie Club Podcast. Follow us on Insta at made_for_TV_movie_club. Tweet us at TV Movie Club Pod 1.
Or give us a Goog at #MFTVMC podcast, and you'll find us.
We'll see you soon in the clubhouse.
And we're back. And now we are at the opening credits. And the movie that both me and Morgan had watched, it was one of the granddaddy of classic cinema that came out in the 70s. It is a movie that is beloved worldwide and has experienced an incredible amount of success and renown and launched the career of one of our favorite actors. And that movie is Rocky. So Morgan, why don't you tell us more about Rocky?
Well, Rocky Balboa is a struggling boxer trying to make the big time, working as a debt collector for a pittance. When heavyweight champion Apollo Creed visits Philadelphia, his managers want to set up an exhibition match between Creed and a struggling boxer, touting the fight as a chance for a quote-unquote nobody to become a quote-unquote somebody. The match is supposed to be easily won by Creed, but someone forgot to tell Rocky, who sees this as his only shot at the big time.
That's right. It's fascinating how that story came about. It's funny because as I was watching this movie, I thought I had seen it before, and then as I was watching it, I realized, I've never seen this movie before. Because it was like, I think I probably got confused Rocky with Rocky 2. I definitely watched Rocky 2, but as I watched this movie, I realized, this is new to me too, which is not how this podcast is work, but that's all right, because that happens a lot. Either it's a movie that I've not seen before, or it's a movie that I've like maybe seen once or twice and I've totally forgot about it. That's happened last week. Last week was City Slickers, and I had no memory at all of the events that happened in that movie. So Rocky is sort of that way. I had I forgot what they call it when you have false memories, but apparently that is what happened to me. So
Like Mandela effect. I
Yeah,
think.
the Mandela effect. I think I had a bit of that going on. This movie was released on December 3rd, 1976, produced by Chartoff Winkler Production. It grossed over $117 million in the US and Canada on a $1.1 million budget, and it had great reviews. Now, a note about this, I usually get my budget information, like the reported budget, off of IMDb. But this one, which is where I get most of my information. For example, the blurb that was Morgan just read, it was submitted by Murray Chapman at murray@cs.uq.oz.au. And that was from IMDb, because IMDb is just easy. It's just the easiest way to run a podcast. Anyways, what you call it? And on IMDb, they say the reported budget is over $900,000. But in the trivia, I found that the budget was actually $1.1 million. And we'll get more about that in the trivia. Also, this movie, when you compare the budget to how much it grosses, as you can see, is incredibly successful. It made like 117 times its budget. And that's unheard of. Like normally you don't even get, if you get like 3 or 4 times your reported budget, then that's aces. That's awesome. But to get over 100 times your reported budget while the film is still in theaters, it's just unheard of. So anyways,
Especially at that time period too.
that time period or any time period. Because studios don't want to be giving up money. Or they'll give up give up gobs of money to renowned directors or whatnot. They'll throw money at a project depending on who's going to make the project. But for the director wasn't a first time director, but they're working off of a screenplay of basically a first time screenwriter and first time actor in a leading role. So they're not trying to give any money to this movie. So and that's also in the trivia. So we're going to move on to talk about who was in the movie. Morgan, who's in Rocky?
Well, Rocky is starring, as we mentioned before, Sylvester Stallone as Robert Rocky Balboa, aka the Italian Stallion. He's best known for his roles in Tulsa King, post-production. He did post-production on Expendables 4 and post-production on the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
Right. Normally, I like to put out what they've done, but we know what Sylvester Stallone has did. He's got a huge body of work. Everybody, I feel like most people have seen at least one movie that featured Sylvester Stallone, or maybe even something that he has cameoed in. As far as Tulsa King, I think that I know they're advertising it on TV. I forgot what service it's on, but it's actually a TV show, so that's going to be interesting. And he's playing a gangster that just got out of jail, and their organization is relocating him to Tulsa, Oklahoma, I guess to expand the gangster territory or whatever. So that looks interesting. But yeah, he's one of the OGs of movie stars. Up next is Talia Shire. She plays Adrian Panino. She's been in The Godfather, The Landlady, and Pizza with Bullets. Most of her movies, I feel like, are indie projects. So a lot of the movies on her IMDb were movies that I've never heard of. Not a lot of recognizable movies, but apparently these are art projects or art tour projects that indie directors love to produce.
I was going to say also, Talia Shire, she's first cousins with Francis Ford Coppola, and he was on the fence about putting her in The Godfather because he'd be accused of nepotism, but he had absolutely no problem putting his daughter, I think Sofia Coppola, in all 3 Godfathers.
Right. Well, hence the accusation.
Yeah. This movie also stars Burt Young as Paulie Panino, best known for his roles in the movies Chinatown, Win-Win, and The Brawler.
Right. Up next is Carl Weathers, who played Apollo Creed. You've seen him in Predator, Happy Gilmore, and Action Jackson. And you may have seen him lately in a couple of Star Wars projects. Namely like the Mandalorian.
Mandalorian, yeah. Burgess Meredith plays Mickey Goldwill. He has been in Clash of the Titans, Grumpier Old Men, and Camp Nowhere.
Yeah, that's a classic character actor. Up next is Thayer Davis. He played George Jenkins. He's been in Journey to the Center of the Earth, Little Big Man, and House of Dark Shadows.
Joe Spinell, who plays Gazzo. He has been in Taxi Driver and Maniac. And if I'm not mistaken, he was also in The Godfather. In a minor role in... No.
Right. That's cool. Jimmy Gambino played Mike. He's been in Snake Eyes and Saturday Night Fever.
Stan Shaw starred as Dipper. He was in Daylight and Harlem Nights.
Yeah, Stan Shaw had a very small role in this movie, but the only reason I put him in there was because he was in Harlem Nights. I just like whenever he shows up, it's just a joy, and it's so strange because I don't know. It would just weirded me out that he's in this movie. He's in Rocky. Because it doesn't seem like he's been around for a long time, but apparently he's been around for a long time, right?
Yeah.
So
I had thing is I had to literally look him up as I was going through the script.
Right.
Like, who? Dipper. What?
Right. So as you've probably found out, Dipper was the boxer that had been like Rocky goes to the locker room and find that his stuff has been taken out of the locker and replaced with somebody else's, and that somebody else was Dipper. And that's because Mickey decided that Dipper was a better prospect to go to glory than Rocky himself was. So that was a sore spot for Rocky for a while. This movie was directed by John G. Avil. Oh, hold on a second. I didn't practice his name. Hold on a second. Let me get my mouth together. Okay. All right. I think I got it. I think I got it. John G. Avildsen. He also directed The Karate Kid, Lean on Me, and The Power of One. So yeah, he's got a pretty good pedigree.
Yeah. This film was written by Sylvester Stallone, who has written Rambo from 2008, along with Staying Alive and the screenplay for The Expendables.
Yes, he's actually got a lot of screenplay credits, and so this is actually screenwriting was Stallone's ticket into Hollywood. Like he wanted to be an actor, and that was really his end because he wasn't getting any roles. So screenwriting, either writing the story or the screenplay, that was his end to Hollywood acting. So the music is by Bill Conti. He's a composer with 155 composer credits to his name. He's also written For Your Eyes Only, The Karate Kid Part 2, The Right Stuff, and for this movie, he's best known for the main theme, Gonna Fly Now. And what's interesting is that I was conflating Gonna Fly Now with Eye of the Tiger by Survivor, which is easy to conflate. You can, yeah. I think I've heard like a mixed version of Gonna Fly Now and Eye of the Tiger. And
it's funny.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say like Gonna Fly Now. That's actually my alarm in the morning. It's like, that's like my 5 a.m. alarm. Just dun, 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 like all right, let's go. And
right.
I think, and rumor has it that John G. Avildsen, I know he directed The Karate Kid, and in The Karate Kid, the song that's playing during the tournament is "You're the Best," and I heard that at the same time that John G. Avildsen was working on The Karate Kid, he was also working on Rocky 3. And initially, You're the Best was supposed to go to Rocky 3, and then The Karate Kid was supposed to get Eye of the Tiger, but then they decided to switch.
Okay.
So that's how Eye of the Tiger became the unofficial theme song of Rocky 3. So
right. Yeah, and I don't doubt it. That's probably all true, right? These things don't happen. These things don't happen like one at a time. Usually what happens is that you got multiple people working on multiple projects simultaneously. Yeah. So, so that's going to happen. So that's it for hold on a second. Let me get myself together. That's it for the opening credits. And if you're enjoying this show, remember that you can get t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, face masks, jerseys, and more at our refurbished website, backlickcinema.com/shop. Remember, autumn is here. We got the hoodies, so go and check those out. And that's it for the opening credits, and we are going to transition to our next segment, which is our favorite parts. And we're back. We get to talk about what we really liked about Rocky. So, Morgan, you were chomping at the bit. Tell us what did you love? What you love about Rocky?
I love that it's just become. I mean, Gonna Fly Now has just become a sports anthem. Like, I feel like this was it was the beginning of such an amazing franchise that is even continuing to this day, like with the Creed movies, and it's just such a cinematic classic, such a great story. It's just such an iconic movie. I don't really have one particular favorite part. I guess for me would maybe be that first the first workout scene where he wakes up at 4 a.m. and then eats 4 eggs and then goes running. Or when he's beating on the meat in the meat shack, and yeah, we just see how Rocky, he was just so determined to succeed. He figured, this is my ticket out of here. It's my ticket out of this 1-bedroom apartment in Philadelphia. A better life does exist. I'm 30 years old. I've been boxing since I was 15, and this is all I've known. This is my ticket out of here. So it's actually interesting. In the intro that we were reading, in the opening credits, we said how it was supposed to be a exhibition match. It was supposed to be for publicity. It's a nobody becoming a somebody. And we do see how Creed, he was really this kind of flashy, flamboyant, almost I guess if I were to compare him to a modern day boxer, like Floyd Mayweather, maybe.
Right.
Just kind of that flair. We see, he shows up, it was, I guess the final fight takes place at the start of 1977. So it being the bicentennial for the United States, he shows up, he's dressed like George Washington, he's handing out money to the crowd. And then he, changes into, Uncle Sam, I want you, I want the stallion, Creed in 3 rounds, and then it's going to end in a knockout. But, he really just kind of underestimated, when you're at the very bottom of your division, and it's when you're just kind of struggling, there's, when you're just struggling, and you hear from some promoter that you have the opportunity to, well, not only for you to become successful, for you to become the best in your field, but for you to also kind of put your city on the map. There was that scene where Rocky, he walks into the promoter's office, promoter's dressed all, nice in a suit and everything, Rocky's dressed like Rocky Balboa. And then the promoter is Rocky, do you believe that America is the land of opportunity? And, he pitches him this idea, you're going to fight Apollo Creed, for the heavyweight champion of the world, 1,000,000 to 1 shot. He's 1,000,000 to 1 shot. And then he gets just to be in the same ring as Apollo Creed, the, heavyweight champion of the world, for him to be just in the same ring as this man. He just had that fighting spirit. He just had that, either I'm gonna if I'm gonna lose, I'm going to lose by split decision. I'm not gonna get knocked out. I'm not gonna get knocked out. He said, he thinks it's all a show. For me, this is real. This is my life. This is my opportunity. This is my, now I'm kind of paraphrasing. This is how I, quote unquote, make it out of the hood.
Right, right,
You
right.
know, which is real for a lot of people, I think. So I think for him it was an opportunity to make it to the big time, make it to the big top and get his name out there and put his city on the map. And even once it was announced that he would be competing for the heavyweight title, then now all of a sudden he's getting all this attention. He's like a local neighborhood celebrity. He's got the entire, I guess, him being an Italian American, he's got like the whole Italian community is behind him. Everybody's, cheering for him.
Right, right.
The story of like a 1,000,000 to 1 shot, him actually taking it seriously and putting everything he had into his training and his diet. And I think like there's one scene where, it was after he had like, beat all the meat in like the meat shack, and he's like sitting on the couch, and then Adrian kind of like, comes on to him, he's like, hey, there's no fooling around during training. All right, I want to stay strong.
Right, right,
it's like,
right,
like
right.
him just having that discipline and that commitment, and then the ability to just like go the distance.
Right.
And so I think that's why this movie is so iconic. That's why it spurred 5 sequels. I
Right,
think.
right.
Yeah, like 5 sequels.
It's actually, wait a minute, I think it's 6 sequels, because there's one last one called Rocky Balboa. Because it's Rocky 5, and then like just a couple years ago, it came out with Rocky Balboa, and then
Rocky Balboa.
and then the spinoffs is
and then Creed,
right? So and the legacy continues. And what's interesting is that he didn't have to fight that hard, right? There was a point where he was knocking down, and his manager would just tell him to stay down, because it's like as soon as he stepped into the ring, he's already paid. He's already paid. It's like he was getting $100,000 regardless of what happened, right? So except if he won, obviously he would have gotten a bigger prize. But just by stepping in the ring, he already he would already been pretty good. As a matter of fact, when he first goes and meets the promoter, he believes that he's going to be a sparring partner for Apollo Creed. And that would have been an enormous upgrade to his lifestyle. So even just being a temporary, sparring partner would have been great for his come up. But instead, he gets like you say, he gets a shot at the heavyweight champion. And so he could have just stayed down. But instead, he really wanted. He never believes that he could win, but he believed that he could at least go all 15 rounds. It's like he could at least go the distance. So he was like, that was his goal, because it's like, and he gave it all, and gave it his all, and that is what so many people admire about him. This is the ultimate underdog movie, because he didn't win, right? So it was it was great in that way. So some of the things I liked about it was I felt like it had just the right atmosphere. So it's probably because it was such a low budget movie, so they couldn't afford like the biggest and the fanciest equipment. But the way it was shot, the cinematography, that like I don't have the language to describe what I was looking at, but it just looked really good. It felt really good, the way they had shot the movie. So like I mentioned, I was looking on my inflation calculator. So one of the things that happened is that he's paid $20. Hold on a second. Yeah, so he would have got like $100 for that one job. So and then the guy owed him $130. So the guy actually owed about $619 in today's money. He's just carrying that around in his pocket. That's what he paid, but I think he owed like $700 in today's money. Because remember, he only gave Rocky a partial payment. Rocky's supposed to break his thumbs, but he doesn't do it, and then that kind of gets him in trouble with his street boss. Like, man, you're supposed to break his thumbs. When they tell you to break his thumbs, you did break his thumbs. But Rocky is not like actually the thumb breaking type, right? He's trying not to do that. But still, he has a job, and that was one of the themes of the movie. Is like he knows that what he's doing is kind of messed up. It's like a messed up way to make a living, but it's the only way that he knows how to make a living. And then that was the thing about what's his name, Paulie. So Paulie he wants to get in. He wants to do what Rocky is doing. He wants to be a leg breaker. He wants to work for the mob like Rocky is working for the mob, and Rocky is not helping him out, right? Rocky's always pushing him
Yeah.
off or just basically ignoring him or like
Yeah.
ignoring his requests. He's like, he's not
Yeah, I
he's not
mean,
engaging with Paulie on that level. So every time Paulie asks him about it, basically Rocky ignores him or doesn't answer or he obfuscates or he changes the subject. Like he's not because he doesn't want Paulie in that life. Like
mm,
I don't think it's necessarily because Paulie's kind of messed up, but he do
yeah.
seem to
I mean,
be
there is that scene where like Paulie just like kind of attacks like Rocky and Adrian with that baseball
right,
bat.
right,
It's like,
right.
it's like it's like I let you date my sister. It's
Right,
like,
right.
You
Like
ain't never
I let
done
you.
nothing for me. It's like
Yeah, Paulie's got some issues and complications. And there was another thing I liked is that how so Apollo Creed is the heavyweight champion in the world. The heavyweight champion in the world doesn't just fight anybody. You got to fight somebody that's in the on the list or in the running. The number 2 spot, the number 3 spot. The most likely people who could probably beat you. That's how you maintain your reputation, and that's how you stay fit, really. And so there are all these people that he's supposed to be fighting that are lined up that he's supposed to fight, and none of them can fight him. And he's actually accusing them of being chicken, right? But so that's where he gets this idea of challenging somebody local. So that's how he can sell it to the people, right? So it's like he sells it by saying, well, this is the land of opportunity. So he's going to give some local kid some opportunity to try and beat him, the heavyweight champion. So because this fight needs to happen. There's already money that's poured into this fight, and the other fighter had bowed out. So he still wants to do this fight. So he finds a way to sell it. And what I really like about that character is that he's sort of a combination of Muhammad Ali because he's all bombastic and like insulting people and whatnot, and also like a savvy businessman. So he's both in one character. So he's not just like some one note dude who just boxes. He's got a whole organization behind him, right? So that's what I really loved about his character, and also and how he chooses Rocky, right? He's just going through this book of prospects in Philadelphia, and he goes down and he says, the Italian Stallion is not Italian, it's Italian Stallion. That sounds good. It's like not based on whether Rocky can fight or not. It's just based on what his name sounds like. Yeah, I want to fight the Italian Stallion.
It's like, who discovered America?
Right. The Italians. Right. So also we talked about Paulie. Paulie is a massive asshole. Like it's on Thanksgiving, and so this it's funny, right? Because the whole Thanksgiving thing was kind of made up on the spot, but because of the ice rink, we'll read more about the ice rink in the trivia, but because it wasn't supposed to be on Thanksgiving, but it happened to be on Thanksgiving, and Adrian says like she made a turkey, and he takes the turkey out the oven, which is done. It's a done turkey, and he throws it out. I was like, "What?
Right.
This dude is a monster." Because he's trying to get his sister to go out with Rocky, so he does that by throwing the turkey out. Yeah. So, but I think that I'm pretty sure that especially like when he tries to attack Rocky and Adrian, I think Paulie is on the spectrum, but because we get a hint, I think they're both in the spectrum. I think that Adrian is in the spectrum because we kind of get a hint in that when Rocky is talking to her. Because you get the feeling that Rocky has known both Adrian and Paulie for a long time. These feel like lifelong friends that they've known at least. I feel like they've probably known each other for like maybe 10 years, and Rocky's always been attracted to Adrian and always been trying to talk to her. But because she's on the spectrum, she doesn't know how to engage, and because he's kind of he's not a Renaissance man, so he doesn't know how to relate to people. I wouldn't say that he's on the spectrum, but I do think that he does have a lot of problems relating to other people, especially women, right? So he's used to just women just coming on to him because of his physique. But with Adrian, he really has to work at it, and he doesn't know how. So but he kind of figures it out. He uses his like charm and whatnot. And I like the when she asked him like, "Why do you want to fight?" And he says, "Because I can't sing or dance."
Oh yeah, yeah. And then he like goes on to say it's like my mom told me, you're not much of a brain, you better build your body. And then Adrian's like, my mom told me the exact opposite. She said, you're not much of a body, you better build your brain.
Right,
So,
right. And he starts to charm her a little bit, but then they get back to her apartment, and that's the other thing was like, oh yeah, it seems like she is you can see like she's a different person. She has a different mentality. Like when he invites her to come in, she's hesitant, and when she's inside, she wants to leave.
right.
And it's like
Yeah.
and she says like, I don't belong here. I don't feel
I
safe
don't
here.
belong.
Right. And she's
Right.
like simple
Yeah.
and direct, and that's when we get into a little bit of problems because then like when she starts to leave, then Rocky closed the door. I was like, okay, this looks like
Oh,
kidnapping, and like nobody ever
right.
talks
I was gonna
about
say,
this.
like, this scene, like, it was definitely 1976. Okay, like,
Right, right,
this
right.
scene cannot happen today.
Right. Oh, it
Right,
can,
like,
but
well,
it would play out differently, right? It's like, okay, like the
the movie
audience
might
would
not make it.
recognize it for what it
Yeah.
is, right? And it
It
won't.
might not make it. It wouldn't last in cinema in the theaters very long because of that one
Well,
scene, but
it depends on how it plays out. It's like if they do it and then Rocky himself realizes that what he's doing is wrong, and then he lets her
okay,
go,
yeah, right.
then it would play out correctly. But in this instance, in 1976, it's like you don't really hear audiences talking about that scene. Not even today,
Yeah.
and you definitely didn't hear him talking about it back then because that's just the way people acted back then, right? So,
Yeah.
but
I mean, but yeah, that, and also like you got to consider like Hollywood, like back in the 70s, like you started seeing more. I guess Hollywood had become like more liberal. It's like but in like the 70s and especially by the 80s, it's like all bets are off. You got people like swearing in like PG rated movies, and it's like you look at Hollywood in like the 1940s and 50s. It was like you couldn't show skin
right,
on
right,
camera.
right,
Like,
right.
you couldn't
Yeah.
show a husband and a wife in the same bed. Like, that
Right,
was
that's
not.
correct. Right.
So the 70s, you started to see a bit of a shift in the narrative, like a shift in terms of what was and wasn't tolerated by Hollywood
Right.
at
And
the
it
time. So
and yeah, and there's a lot of machismo in Hollywood, so obviously
Mm.
because the masochist thought, well, that looks all right to me. That's fine. That'll play well, right? I feel like just people just kind of accepted it as that's the way the world is. But so it's kidnapping. It's going to start off as a kidnapping. We just kind of have to acknowledge that. And then
Yeah.
he's like very gentle with it. It's like he's approaching a woodland creature. He's like, okay, I'm going to kiss you, right? He announces it.
It's like,
And he
announces-
kisses it. Right. And he doesn't kiss on the lips, kiss on the TV. He's not like he's forcing
Right.
himself on her. He's being very gentle and very slow because, like I said, he doesn't really know how to relate to people, right? It's not something that is not. I don't think this is something that he's been taught, right? He's not been taught emotional
Yeah.
intelligence. He hasn't been taught how to relate to people. He's just been taught how. It's like a kind of brute force way of dealing with people. I think that his father is supposed to be a Irish Catholic preacher. No, not Irish Catholic. Italian preacher or whatever. I don't know. I think his father was a priest or something. But anyway, however, his father
Yeah.
and his mother had taught him how to relate to people. He whatever was ineffective, or that's how they were with people.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So-
funny because like I saw this movie for the first time when I was 13.
Right,
so.
right. So, but then, and then Adrian has her own problems. Like she's obviously autistic. So, but she's somehow, some way, I guess because of that kiss, she's able to feel because he was slow enough and comfortable enough, and plus they've known each other most of their lives. I think that she's able to reciprocate. Like I think in that moment she felt
Yeah.
safe, and so she was able to return the affection that Rocky was trying to show. I think she finally recognized that Rocky was just trying to show her some affection. But I think that was one of the most interesting scenes in the movie. It's like, oh no, nobody talks about this kidnapping scene.
Right, yeah, it's like we all just look the other way.
It's like, yeah, this is like, oh yeah,
Okay, there's
Rocky, he
movie-
goes around and he fights and stuff, and he tries his hardest, and he's able to achieve something. It's like, wait a minute, let's talk about this scene right here. But
Hold on.
moving along, in my notes here, there's there's also, you had mentioned the eggs that he eats in the morning. What you did not mention, that these are raw eggs, and
Yeah, raw eggs, right.
he's like just cracks 4 eggs, put them in a cup, and just, don't blend them and don't nothing. Just gobbles them up just like that. And it's like, what makes it even worse is like the egg is like dripping down his face. It's like, God. You can at least do that without the eggs dripping down his face. That was even more gross, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, as a fellow, gym rat, it's like even I don't think I'd have the stomach for
right
raw eggs.
I don't know if that was a thing all the time, but I know that it seemed to be something that a lot of people did after that movie.
Well, yeah, definitely. That movie was definitely like the catalyst.
Right. It was like, and the doctor said, it's like, y'all need to stop doing that. Y'all please cook your eggs, because you could get sick. I think some people probably started getting sick because doing that. That's why you're supposed to cook your eggs, at least a little bit. At least a little bit.
PSA to all the listeners out there, cook your eggs. Don't
Right.
raw.
Another impactful scene was we had talked about earlier with Rocky losing his he loses his locker. He says they put my stuff out in the street. It wasn't in the street, but it was where he felt like he was homeless now because he lost his locker and his stuff is just hanging in the bag and whatnot in the gym, just hanging on the hook instead of inside of a locker. So so he's confronting Mickey about it, and he's trying to figure out why Mickey is treating him this way. It's like, why are you throwing my stuff out? Why you don't engage with me? It's like, why? And it's like Ricky is turning out because he works for the mob, basically, because you're a no good leg breaker. So that was that was interesting. That did a lot to inform Mickey's character. So
shark.
Right. And then that whole scene when after Rocky gets his opportunity to do this, and then Mickey comes over and like, I can be your manager, and so that was a hard scene because he swallowed all of his pride, right, to try to train Rocky, and I don't exactly know what his motivation is. Maybe because he wants to get some of that glory. I think the main thing is he wants to get some of that glory back because he was a fighter and he felt like he didn't have a chance because he didn't have a manager, and he believes that if he could be a manager for Rocky, then that would push Rocky further than he's ever been. So in a sense, he's living vicariously through Rocky. He's living vicariously through all of these boxers, but now Rocky, because of this opportunity, has leapfrogged all of those boxers, and now Rocky has a chance to achieve something. So he wants to be a part of that. And Rocky recognizes that, he's not engaging with this dude. He actually, at one point, he hides in his bathroom until the guy leaves.
Yeah, he hides in his bed and like, and then he comes up.
Right, he doesn't even want to talk to him. He's like,
I needed your help like 15 years
ago. Right. And he gets out all of his aggression, all of his anger, all of that resentment. He has a whole boatload of resentment. So he gets rid of all of that resentment in that one scene. And then he goes out and he goes in and allows allows Mickey to train him, right, and be his manager. So that was pretty powerful. That was one of my favorite scenes. And then of course you have the training montage. It's like the training montage to end all the training montages. I feel like, I know this can't be the first training montage, but it might as well be, right?
Okay, I mean, it's probably not the first training montage.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe this was probably like one of the earliest well-known training montages, and
probably the earliest and definitely one of the most impactful training montages of all of cinema. So that is probably second only to something like in Top Gun, and maybe even Top Gun Maverick. That's another movie that I have seen recently.
Haven't seen it.
Right. We haven't seen it ever. I hadn't seen it in a long time.
I haven't seen Top Gun Maverick, and I've only seen Top Gun like once.
Right.
Maybe twice.
Yeah.
Well, start to finish, I've only seen it once, and then like it comes on like I have YouTube TV, so like we have like the Paramount network. Like when I'm at home, like sometimes I'll be like flipping through. It's like Paramount Network and like Top Gun, but I'll be like doing the dishes.
Right. It's in the background. Well, Top Gun Maverick is a lot like Top Gun. It's not like you have to watch the first movie to enjoy the second movie, and it's basically the same movie. I'm not gonna lie, but it's still enjoyable because the story is just very well told. And one of the movies I point out that's like the prequel is, so you have Escape from New York, which is a pretty good movie, and then Escape from LA is like a copy of Escape from New York. And I hated and resented Escape from LA for being a copy of Escape from New York instead of being its own new movie. I felt like that movie should have been a brand new movie, but instead it was just a redo or a remake of Escape from New York, and I hated that movie for that. But by the same token,
Kurt Russell too,
right? But by the same token, Top Gun Maverick is basically the same movie as Top Gun, but it still works. So I don't know why. I feel that way about the movie. Still, I think they made it.
Sometimes it works.
Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that they made enough changes because there were different dynamics in Top Gun Maverick. So they made enough changes in Top Gun Maverick to give it its own identity. So you didn't feel like you was watching the same movie. And then there were some sequences that were just awesome in the sequel.
Yeah, it's like even with the Rocky franchise, it's like I feel like the movie Creed is kind of similar to Rocky, but we also see sort of a passing of the torch, or I guess the carrying on of the legacy. And Creed is its own film, maybe because of the time jump, because it's not 1976 anymore, like it's 2015, and 40 years have passed. So
there's a different relationship dynamic and all of that in that movie. But one of the things I noticed, it seems that Rocky seems to have this tick where he starts punching when he gets nervous. Like he starts doing his punching jabs when he's like when he's talking to Adrian. He starts getting a punching when he's working through something, or when he gets a little bit nervous.
Right, when they're ice skating. Right?
Yeah. Apollo, he's called the Master of Disaster. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then you had the what you call it, the montage. At one point, Rocky's wearing white shorts with a red stripe at the beginning of the fight. By the end of the fight, his shorts are red, and I'm like, well, they're red now, because he points out the poster is wrong because the poster wearing red shorts, and by the end of the film, he's wearing red shorts. So did you have any more favorite parts you wanted to go over?
Oh no, I guess like during the actual fight in the end, seeing like you said, like when Mick had said like no, stay down, and then like Creed, and then Creed like going back to his corner, and he's like, he still thinks that this is an actual fight, like he don't know that this is a show, and then like Creed's team is like, will you knock this guy out so we can go home? Like,
his manager, his ring manager, his ring man is telling him,
knock this guy out. So
right.
I mean,
the same guy tried to warn him earlier in the film because he was watching a news report, and a news reporter that Paulie had invited and didn't tell Rocky, so he invited a reporter to watch Rocky train in the meat factory.
Oh right, the
and so he's hitting the slab of meat, and so Creed's manager is watching this on TV, and it's like, man, Creed, you got to come over and watch this. And Apollo's like, nah, yeah, whatever, he's good. It's like, because Creed is not. He's definitely underestimating Rocky. He's expecting a skilled fighter, so he knows that whoever he's going to fight is going to know what he's doing. But he's not interested in studying this fighter. As far as he's concerned, it's just a regular dude. He's an unranked dude, and as far as he's concerned, there's no unranked dude that could possibly be the heavyweight champion of the world. So he's not. He's not. He's like, yeah, whatever. So he doesn't take Rocky seriously. All right, so that's all for talking about our favorite parts of the movie, and we're going to transition to the trivia. All right, we are in the trivia section provided to us by IMDb. Morgan, why don't you let us know start us off on the trivia?
Well, first off, Rocky is not the character's actual name. His real name is Robert Balboa. This was seen in a rough script for the second film. He took the nickname from real-life boxer Rocky Marciano. Rocky's nickname the Italian Stallion is a reference to Sylvester Stallone. The word stallion in Italian is Stallone.
Wow, that's brilliant. It's
I had no idea.
self-referential. I don't think that they definitely didn't use the name Robert in this first movie, so I don't know if they've
Right.
ever used the name Robert.
They
So
haven't. I don't think. I mean, he's always gone by Rocky.
Right,
No
he's a-
ever like. I had no idea, but like before, reading through this trivia, I'm like, his real name's Robert. I mean, I figured Rocky would be like a nickname. I mean, it's not like a
yeah,
name.
yeah,
It's like,
and
but
right,
still.
but they never refer to Robert. And the other thing is that I found this in like a wiki. So there are wikis on like every fandom. So I found this in a Rocky wiki where they mentioned that, and I was like, well, that's a good bit of trivia. So I don't obviously it's something that's found in the early script. So I don't know how much it is canon in actual Rocky lore that his first
Yeah.
name is Robert. But I would like for them to acknowledge that in one of these films.
Yeah. My guess is maybe they acknowledged it in Rocky 5 when Rocky had like gone bankrupt and he had to like I think sell his mansion. Like maybe during like a few of those like meetings with like the lawyers, like they might have like for legal purposes, they usually like spell out like the full
Right,
government
right.
name. He probably had to like sign Robert Balboa,
Right.
Rocky, but
So after producers Erwin Winkler and Robert Chartoff became interested in the script, they offered Sylvester Stallone an unprecedented $350,000 for the rights. He had $106 in his bank and no car, and was trying to sell his dog because he couldn't afford to feed him. But he refused to sell unless they agreed to allow him to star in the film. They agreed, and on the condition that Stallone continued to work as a writer without a fee and that he worked as an actor for scale. After Winkler and Chartoff purchased the film, they took it to United Artists, who envisioned a budget of $2 million with an established star, particularly Robert Redford, Ryan O'Neal, or Burt Reynolds, or Nick Nolte, or James Caan. When Winkler and Chartoff told United Artists that they could only get the screenplay if Stallone starred, United Artists cut the budget to $1 million and had Chartoff and Winkler sign an agreement that they would be personally liable if the film went over budget. The final cost was $1.1 million. Chartoff and Winkler mortgaged their houses for the last $100,000. So that's fascinating.
wow. That's
Yeah, that's the dramatic beginning for this movie.
yeah, dramatic beginning. All right. I mean, it's funny you mentioned they wanted an established star like Robert Redford, Ryan O'Neal, Burt Reynolds. It's like it was the same exact thing for the Christopher Reeves as Superman in the 70s. It's like I think Warner Bros. Or whomever, like they didn't want Christopher Reeves. I think for Superman, they were initially looking at actually the likes of Sylvester Stallone, which was in the running. They were looking at Sylvester Stallone. He
Yeah,
definitely would've
basically
been-
all of the same actors. They was looking
yeah,
for
it's like Sylvester Stallone.
they was looking
wanted,
for
I think,
Sylvester Stallone. They was looking for
Arnold Schwarzenegger was
Right.
one. Christopher Walken was another. Who,
Right,
in
right.
retrospect, I realized Christopher Walken would have killed it as Lex Luthor. Not gonna lie. Okay.
Yeah, maybe
Right.
Lex Luthor, but not
you know.
Superman. They wanted Clint Eastwood. They wanted Clint Eastwood too. They also wanted James Caan, but nobody wanted to play Superman. So that was a different issue. And in this issue, it was because they had already agreed to have Stallone star in the film. But in the Superman instance, nobody wanted to dress up and play a superhero.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Different
cool back then.
Yeah. It's the 70s. So Stallone was inspired to write the screenplay after seeing the Chuck Wepner-Muhammad Ali fight on March 24th, 1975 at the Richfield Coliseum in Richfield, Ohio, near Cleveland. 36-year-old Wepner was considered a moderate talent, but no one expected him to last more than 3 rounds against Ali. The longer the fight went, the more shocked people became. Wepner even managed to knock Ali down in the 9th round, although Ali always maintained that Wepner was standing on his foot when he fell. Ali pummeled Wepner mercilessly for the next 6 rounds, breaking his nose and opening large gashes above both his eyes. No matter how hard Ali hit him, Wepner kept moving forward and kept fighting. Eventually, with 19 seconds left in the 15th and final round, Ali scored a technical knockout, TKO. 40 years later, Wepner's story was adapted as Chuck, which came out in 2016. The ads emphasized the fact that it was, quote, the inspiration for Rocky. Wepner himself, a native of Bayonne, New Jersey, was known as the Bayonne Bleeder.
Oh, that's
I feel
also fascinating.
Yeah, I feel like I heard something about, I think I saw like a trailer for the movie Chuck, I think on HBO, and I think I was watching Rocky and an ad for Chuck, and like in the ad it's like, you know who I am, like you may not know me personally, but you know my story, you know who I am,
Right?
And it's like I'm the inspiration for Rocky, and or I think in the movie Chuck, I think we actually, now I haven't actually seen the movie, but judging from the trailer, Chuck was approached by Sylvester Stallone about the movie
Mm-hmm.
idea, for Rocky. So that was an interesting parallel.
Right. So, another interesting tidbit: Stallone quit smoking while making this film because he was getting out of breath.
Any reason is a good reason.
Right. And he's smoking, like the character Rocky is smoking throughout the movie.
Oh, right.
Stallone himself had to quit because
yeah,
he couldn't.
It's like, Rocky can smoke throughout this film, but Sylvester Stallone is quitting.
Right.
Yes. Any reason is a good reason to quit.
Right.
For our listeners. The monologue, which Rocky delivers after turning down Mickey's offer to manage him, was completely improvised on set by Stallone. He has since explained that he was heavily influenced by the fact that the bathroom of the tiny apartment in which they were shooting really did stink.
Yeah, that was a powerful moment too.
Yeah.
So that scene that he did was improvised. That's pretty incredible. People, I don't think, give Stallone enough credit for his acting acumen, but he's pretty good. He does pretty good for himself.
It's a bit method.
Right. So most of the scenes of Rocky jogging through Philadelphia were short, guerrilla style, with no permits, no equipment, and no extras. The shot where he runs past the moored boat, for example, the crew were simply driving by the docks, and John G. Avildsen saw the boat and he thought it would make a good visual. So he had Stallone simply get out of the van and run along the quays, while Avildsen himself filmed from the side door. A similar story concerns a famous shot of Rocky jogging through the food market. As he runs, the stall keeper and the people on the sidewalks can clearly be seen looking at him in bemusement. While this works in the context of the film to suggest that they're looking at Rocky, in reality, they had no idea why this man was running up and down the road, being filmed from a van. During the scene, a famous shot where the stall owner throws Rocky an orange was completely improvised by the stall owner, who had no idea that a movie was being filmed and that he would be in it. And it all looks so natural too. It looks so natural. Like when Rocky caught the orange, he didn't fumble the orange or anything. He just caught it. It looked like it was totally planned.
It all looked so perfect. I mean, I figured that maybe some of the shots in the movie, like as I rewatched the movie as I got older, it's like I figured maybe some of the shots were shot guerrilla style, or maybe the studio had like a fall guy. I actually heard that for it's funny, in the interview I actually didn't mention that I'm a huge Fast and Furious franchise nerd, and the third film, Tokyo Drift, was mostly filmed in Los Angeles because Japan and because Tokyo, they didn't really allow people to use their city to film anything, so they had to so the studio, Universal Studios, they had to block off 12 blocks in Los Angeles and redecorate it to make it look like Tokyo. But then also, there was one scene that they filmed illegally, like guerrilla style, in Japan, and then they had a fall guy who actually spent the night in jail after that. after that one scene, it's like we got a fall guy. It's like there's one scene in that film. I don't know which scene. I wish I knew which scene it was. That was in fact filmed guerrilla style, without permits, no streets blocked off, nothing. And they had a fall guy. It's like, and he did it.
Right.
And who here's the key grip?
Right.
The key. When shooting his famous jog through the streets of Philadelphia, Stallone pulled a tendon in his leg and was taken to a nearby hospital in a wheelbarrow.
Ooh, that must have hurt.
That's very unfun. I mean,
Nah.
talk about, method acting.
But that's not even in the film, so you really can't even call that method acting.
Right. It's like
he just hurt himself.
Yeah, it's like I feel like now I'm gonna have to like rewatch this film and I'm gonna see like, is he limping in any scenes? It's like,
Right.
Because you hear about actors getting injured on set, and then maybe some of it might make its way into the film, or they might like play it off, and it's like well, now I got to see the film again. I got to see like, is any limping or anything?
Right. Oh, famously, in 7 with Brad Pitt, half of the film he's wearing a cast because in real life he hurt his hand, and he has to wear the cast in his hand because he hurt his hand in real life. I think he hurt his hand in one of the scenes where he's chasing the murderer, and he hurt his hand, so he had to wear a cast. And then there's another famous one where Mark Hamill had gotten into a motorcycle accident before they started filming Empire Strikes Back. So he still had scars on his face from the accident. So that's why they invented the Bacta scene where he gets attacked by the ice creature and he goes into the Bacta tank. That's why they did all of that, because he messed up his face.
Right. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. I also heard that I think Harrison Ford on the set of like The Force Awakens, that Harrison Ford had like fallen or something, that he had gotten injured.
Yeah, what happened was that a door had fell on his leg or crushed his leg or something like that. So yeah, he was limping around for a little while. I was like, man, you can't be damaging these old people like that, man. Right? You gotta be careful, man. These people are old. They don't heal like they're supposedly, like they don't heal quickly. Right. So it's like when you damage them like that, there's a chance that the damage could be permanent. You're not dealing with a 20-year-old. So yeah, it was it was a scene where I guess he was walking through a door or whatever, and the door had hit his leg, and he was in a cast for a little while. So yeah, be careful with your elders. Respect your elders, people. Yeah, moving right along. During his audition, Carl Weathers was sparring with Sylvester Stallone and accidentally punched him in the chin. Stallone told Weathers to calm down, as it was only an audition, and Weathers said that if he was allowed to audition with the real actor, not a stand-in, he would be able to do a lot better. The director, Alvidson, smiled and told Weathers that Stallone was the real actor and the writer. Weathers looked at Stallone thoughtfully for a moment and said, well, maybe he'll get better. Stallone immediately offered him the role.
Yeah, it's like with any movie like this, with any like, suspense actor, like or like dramatic actors, it's like you got to be able to, like, with the co-stars, just kind of like, okay, once the scene's over, it's like, okay, and breathe. Let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's just like kind of regroup. I heard that's what was that's what was done, I guess, more recently. Like there's a show on HBO Max called Euphoria. Well, it's on HBO and also on HBO Max. And I think one of the co-stars, like there's a scene in season 2 where I guess Rue, the main character played by Zendaya, but she has like a really intense, heated argument like with her mom, and then like in the behind the scenes after that episode, they had the actress who plays the mom, like she said how like after that scene, like her and Zendaya had to like kind of just like breathe. It's like, you good? You sure? Okay.
Right.
It's like, all right. It's like, all right. So want to go have lunch? Yeah. Just had this like really intense, like, scene, like where, in the case of like Carl Weathers and Sylvester Stallone, it's like, we're have this really intense like boxing match and cut. All right. So I'll go grab lunch. Like,
Right.
Like when we were like the sandwich. So yeah. Prior to shooting the fight between Stallone and Weathers, Avildsen decided that the scenes needed to be shot in a unique way as to make the boxing more realistic than in other boxing movies of the period. He, Weathers, and Stallone all went to a ring and began to block out the moves, but it wasn't working, and the fight was coming across as staged and not very energetic. After stuntmen / fight choreographers Paul Stader and George P. Wilbur resigned due to creative disagreements, Avildsen then told Stallone to go home and literally write out the fight. Rocky throws left, Creed moves back, Creed goes right, Rocky goes right, Creed jabs low, etc. The next day, Stallone returned with 32 pages of specific directions for the fight, which he and Weathers learned off like a ballet, or like a ballet over a period of a few weeks. In total, Stallone and Weathers rehearsed over 35 hours.
Yeah, that's pretty
That
cool
is
dedication. It's like a very sophisticated professional wrestling match.
Right, yeah.
Right.
I was gonna say it's like, because all those things are like, staged and scripted, and it's like with a boxing match. Like, yeah, I mean, I like how like in the fact they said like they learned it like as if it were a ballet,
Right.
over a period of a few weeks. Like there's different like steps, but yeah, I mean 35 hours.
Well, usually,
That just goes to show, like, I feel like we might like take it for granted today because we have like visual effects and like CGI and like second unit and all this other stuff. 60s, 70s, that didn't exist. Everything was physical. Like you were like, there was that inconvenience that forced writers like Sylvester Stallone, that forced like writers and directors to just spend like countless hours, just days, weeks, months to perfecting that one scene, like getting that one perfect scene, that one perfect shot, even. And so there was that commitment, there was that ingenuity that you see today, like from directors. But I just feel like today it's a lot easier. And back then, everything was physical. Like you had stuntmen, you had fight coordinators. Like it was a whole like production. There's like a whole team that went into, like, even if it's a scene where it's just these two guys, it's like there's a whole like behind the scenes like network
right.
that they had. And like the directors, like as the guy in the chair, it's like you were the one who was like the first one to set and the last one to leave. It's like
Right.
you were the one who had to be on your A game. You got people dependent on you. People are counting on you. You got the studio is dependent on you. Everybody needs to get paid one way or another. This has to work.
Right. The other thing is that they probably could have just had better fight coordinators because, or a director who has actually seen a fight, because Albertson had never seen a boxing match before. He directed this movie. And obviously in Hong Kong, they were very good at fight coordination. And you just have, there are some people that are just better at, shooting or orchestrating fight scenes than others. And they just didn't have those people on hand. So they had to make it up themselves. And it worked. They managed to pull it off. So,
I mean, yeah, it's even like, I guess going back to the Fast and Furious franchise, it was the directors from the first Fast and Furious movie, which came out in 2001. Good year. It's the year I was born. And they actually, rumor has it that they actually witnessed an illegal street race in downtown Los Angeles. So they actually like witnessed the street race and then, had to like, make a dash. So pretty much like that scene in the Fast and the Furious where there's that first street race and then everybody's got to scatter because the cops are coming, like that was very real. So that was almost like you were saying, like they could have just witnessed the fight. It's like that. And on top of that, with Fast and Furious, like there was a whole article back in like the late 90s about like the illegal street racing crowd. So
on the next point we have, Stallone insisted that the scene where he admits his fears and doubts to Adrian the night before the fight be filmed, even though production was running far behind and the producers wanted to skip it. Stallone had only one take for the scene, despite the fact that he considered it to be the most important scene in the film. And he did pretty good on that one take. So the take that we seen on film was the one take. Is like his most important. I know you don't want to do it. At least just shoot it once, so I can put it in the movie. And I think he was right. His instincts were on point with that.
Yeah, but now, just so I'm not mistaken, this is the scene where he is kind of laying down next to Adrian, and or this is the scene where, well, I'm actually kind of getting ahead of myself into the next bit of trivia, where he goes over to the stadium and then he sees the promoter, and then it's like he goes home and he's like lying next to Adrian, and he like tells her how he's like actually kind of scared and like worried. Like that's the scene we're talking about.
Yeah, he's telling her that he was going to lose. He's
Right,
like,
right, he was gonna
yeah,
lose, yeah.
he told her straight point he was going to lose, and she says, and basically she gives him some encouragement and saying, you know, you're just going to go out there and you're going to do the best you can or whatever. So that, so that is what he didn't want to do it. He's like he's not. He said he wasn't going to do it. Not that he was going to lose, but he told her he wasn't going to do it. He's like, I can't fight. I can't do this. I can't do this. And she basically tells him that he could, right? So that was a scene that he felt that that the producers wanted to skip.
Yeah. Next bit of trivia. In the film, the poster above the ring before Rocky fights Apollo shows Rocky wearing red shorts with a white stripe when he actually wears white shorts with a red stripe. This was an actual mistake made by the props department that they could not afford to rectify. So Stallone came up with the idea for the scene where Rocky points out the mistake himself. The comment about Rocky's robe being too baggy came about the same way. The robe delivered to the set was far too baggy for Stallone. So rather than hope people wouldn't notice, the character himself simply points it out.
Yeah, it was a gigantic robe. I mean, the painting is one thing. I can understand the painting, but he had a gigantic robe. Like, who made that robe? It was who did they think they were making it for?
Under the Giant League,
right?
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess this is like, a nice bit of like meta humor, which I feel like kind of like even like in the Marvel movies, like it kind of like winds its way into the movies. Like I was actually just watching Iron Man 2 the other day, and there's a scene where there's like the congressional hearing, and then Rhodey shows up, but it's for the first time Don Cheadle on screen as Rhodey, and Rhodey was played by Terrence Howard in the first Iron Man movie. So then it's like Tony stands up and he like goes over and greets Rhodey. He's like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting to see you here." And then Rhodey's like, "It's me. I'm here. Deal with it."
Right.
Like kind of a meta joke to how the role was recast, and like even on one of the earlier episodes of She-Hulk, which is currently streaming on Disney Plus, there was maybe the second or third episode where Jennifer's on the phone with her cousin, Bruce Banner, Smart Hulk, and then because she's met with Emil Blonsky, aka the Abomination, and there was their rampage through Harlem back in 2008, and it's funny because like Bruce says how it's like, you know, it's like, I've kind of made my peace with that situation. Like that was a long time ago. I was a whole nother person, literally. It's like a nod to how like he was recasted from Edward Norton in The Incredible Hulk to then Mark Ruffalo in The Avengers and all the subsequent films. So it's like those like tiny bits of like meta humor. It's like, if you know, you know.
Right, right, absolutely.
And then it's like all the interviews. Well, I guess in the case of Rocky, it's like, you know, all the like interviews and stuff happens, and then we find out that they actually that was like an actual mistake that made its way into the film. And it's like,
right.
You know, I always get a kick out of this like meta humor.
Right, right.
It's like, you know, you understand then you have to like rewatch the movie and like understand the full context behind, you know, that line. It's like, oh,
right. So the ice rink scene was originally written to feature 300 extras, but the production couldn't afford so many people. When Sylvester Stallone turned up to shoot the scene, to his horror, there was only one extra. So Stallone finally hastily threw the scene that exists in the completed film. This scene has become one of the most popular in the entire Rocky saga. So that's where he bribes the ring manager to let them skate on the ring in the ice rink, where he doesn't skate, but he's just walking beside Adrian,
right?
Who
Yeah,
is skating. So that they had to. So he had to change the scene where he gets her in the first place, where they changed it to Thanksgiving because what you call it, or maybe they didn't change that scene. Maybe there would be 300 extras at the ring on Thanksgiving Day. I don't know. I figure a place like that would be closed on Thanksgiving, but
yeah, probably be closed on Thanksgiving.
But I guess when he was talking to the dude, it had been open earlier, and it was it closed at 6:00. So he had to bribe the dude to skate on the ice for 10 minutes. But that scene actually works. It shows him as a hustler who who has to hustle to get to get things done.
Yeah, it's like I won't tell my boss if you don't tell yours.
Right.
It's like
Moving right along. After the end of filming, Stallone kept the two turtles, Cuff and Link. As of June 2019, he still had them alive and well.
yeah, I mean, Cuff and Link. I think he had that joke about it's like, how he had like the moths and how like a lot of times they get stuck in like the turtle's throat. He had to like hit them on the back so then they get shell shocked.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if now I understand. It's my understanding that the Ninja Turtles cartoon didn't start till 1987. Now I don't know. Now I had first heard the term, shell shocked from like the Ninja Turtles, and I grew up with the 2003 series. That's my childhood. I still have the 1997 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on VHS. Secret of the Ooze on DVD. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3 also on VHS. That's a movie I've only seen on VHS. Wow.
Right.
I'm old. So I'm wondering, like, did they get the idea of like that term shell shocked, which I'm pretty sure was like an actual thing, like an actual like disease or something?
Yeah. Well,
That
shell
would
shocked.
happen? Yeah.
Shell shocked is what they used to call, what we currently call PTSD.
Oh, PTSD.
So it originated either in World War I or World War II when
think it was
soldiers
World War
come.
I.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so soldiers would come home and they would have mental disabilities or mental
Yeah.
illness, and they called it shell shock back then.
Yeah.
And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles just borrowed that term because they have shells.
right. Yeah. It's like,
And they probably got it from Rocky because
Right.
it was part of his joke.
Moving right along, Rocky's dog Butkus was actually Sylvester Stallone's dog in real life.
Yeah, that was a dog that he sold because he was so broke that he could barely live. And then when he sold the script, he was able to buy Butkus back. So that was his dog. So all that love and affection between him and Butkus, that was all genuine because that was his dog.
It's a nice little, parallel real world to and I guess kind of now that I think about it, I mean the entire film of Rocky, like we know this as Sylvester Stallone's rise to the top. Like he was kind of I don't want to say out of work actor and also writer, but like this was really like the movie Rocky was his big break. So in a way, the movie Rocky is really kind of a love letter to Sylvester Stallone in that this movie is his ticket to the top. And Rocky, he is, the writer and director and also the leading man of a movie in which he plays a 1,000,000-to-1 shot unranked boxer who has the opportunity of a lifetime to make it to the big top. So I'm like I'm now seeing that parallel, and so Buck-Kid's kind of starring as himself.
In
this film.
Stallone didn't direct this. It was Albertson, but you're right.
He did not direct.
Right, but this is definitely a parallel of his life, and he actually considered writing a story about a struggling actor, but he decided that no one would be interested in the story of a struggling actor. So he so this is actually a parallel of his life. The iconic shot of Rocky running up the steps of Philadelphia Art Museum came about because Steadicam inventor Garrett Brown, who was from Philadelphia, was getting ready to fly to Los Angeles to try to sell his newly invented Steadicam device. He had shot some test footage following people around corridors and from room to room, but he wanted to be able to shoot something that even the most experienced filmmakers would look at and wonder how he did it. He came up with the idea for his girlfriend to run up and down the museum steps while he followed close behind her using this footage. Brown sold the camera on his first day in Los Angeles, and several months later, Albertson, who was preparing Rocky, saw the footage and felt that a similar type of shot would be perfect for the film. As such, Albertson hired Brown and the Steadicam, and as Brown explained, several months after he had run up the steps filming his girlfriend, he was running back up the steps filming Sylvester Stallone. So that's a cool story.
Yeah, I mean that's I guess again, like I said in the last bit of trivia, it was like that parallel between real life. Reason why I love classic cinema so much is because it's like you can tell you can kind of tell what decade a movie was made in. It's like, you watch Rocky, this is a film from like the 70s. Watch a film from the 70s, it's a film from the 70s, film from the 80s. It's like you can tell it's a film from like the 80s or from the 90s, or even like you can kind of almost pinpoint like what year based on like the quality of the movie as well. So I think having like a steady cam device was probably revolutionary for that time period. So
yeah, I think if you see a shaky cam today, they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, it's like, come on, really? Like,
Right.
During the scene where Gazzo is talking to Rocky about not breaking the dock workers' thumbs, Gazzo pulls out an inhaler mid-sentence and uses it. This wasn't written into the script. Spinell actually had an asthma attack and really had to use his inhaler right on camera on the spur of the moment. John G. Avildsen liked the authenticity it brought to the scene, so he decided to leave it in the film.
Right. I forgot all about that part. I was looking for that while I was watching the movie and I totally missed it.
You find out that there's like a lot of scenes, and I actually talked about this in the very first episode of my podcast when I reviewed Iron Man. Like there's a lot of scenes, a lot of really iconic moments in cinema that were not scripted. Like Midnight Cowboy, that whole scene, like, hey, I'm walking in. That was not scripted. They were filming it like I think they were like filming it guerrilla style in like Midtown Manhattan, and then a car speeds up. And apparently the actor, he was gonna say, hey, we're filming here, but he didn't want to break character. Jaws, we're gonna need a bigger boat. Improvised. According to like co-star Jeff Bridges, he claimed that the movie Iron Man had no official script, and that a lot of those scenes were improvised, and that the co-stars just had to keep up with Robert Downey Jr. and his ability to like steal every scene. Like we know for a fact the line "I am Iron Man" was ad-libbed.
Right.
So I mean, this whole Joe Spinell actually needing an inhaler, and then it just works.
Yeah,
the character, there's a ton of moments like that are like spur of the moment, was not in the script, and it just worked.
Is it my turn?
Yeah. yeah. Dude, I was gonna say, like, do you want to add anything with this?
Yeah, cool. I see it now. When shooting the scenes in the meat locker where he punches the slabs of beef, actor Stallone punched the meat so hard for so long that he flattened out his knuckles. To this day, when he makes a fist, his knuckles are completely level. Like, oh wow. You're working a little bit too hard there.
Yeah. Like, I mean,
he's punching him with his bare hands. He's not even wearing boxing gloves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, he wasn't wearing boxing gloves. Like, I always wonder, like, what did they do for special effects back then? Because it's like, I mean, we take it for granted, like in filmmaking today, it's like, oh, we can just like, CGI this or use like makeup and prosthetics, and it's like,
well, I think if they had a larger budget, they wouldn't have used real meat. They probably would have used a kind of heavy bag, and they probably would have wrapped his hands up a little bit better so he didn't or they might have used a body double to punch the bag, a stunt man to punch the bag instead of the main actor punching the meat, right? So there are different even back then there were different techniques that they could have used so that he could stay safe.
Yeah, definitely. But dedication. Moving right along. As of 2015, and due to this film, Stallone remains, alongside Charlie Chaplin, the only other person in film history to have been the sole writer of an original screenplay, to have starred in a leading role for the same film, and to have been nominated for Oscars for both. By coincidence, Chaplin had been one of the co-founders of the original United Artists.
Right. They had mentioned another actor, but another actor / writer, but he had a co-writer, so he wouldn't fit into this group. But maybe since then there has been more people into this group, but as of 2015, it's just Stallone and Chapman. So that's a very rare air.
Yeah, I mean, and also with Chaplin being one of the co-founders of the original United Artists, I mean,
right.
It all kind of comes full circle in a way. So yeah.
Right. So when he agreed to make the film, John Avildsen had never watched a professional boxing match, nor had he ever seen a boxing movie. So he was really coming in this cold.
Wow, I mean, like, I mean, I guess going back to that other fact about how like Rocky had to like sit down and like write out this entire boxing
Right.
match,
Right.
35 pages. Because John Avildsen never watched a professional boxing match, never seen a boxing movie, which
Right.
well then again, I mean, 1976, I don't really know of any other boxing films before then. Like I'm sure there were. I'm sure, for the real like film connoisseurs, or like the real like film majors out there will know that we'll know about some like, other boxing films pre Rocky, but
yeah, I'm pretty sure there were at least a half a dozen movies that he could have watched, but never had. And then like so he's coming in this cold, right? Not really knowing how to do it, but he and Stone managed to pull it off.
Yeah. So Frank Stallone, Sylvester's father, has a cameo playing the man who rings the opening bell of the Creed versus Balboa fight. Sylvester's younger brother, Frank Stallone, also has a cameo playing the lead singer of the street band, and is also the bum from the dark that passes Rocky and Adrian on the way home from their date.
Right. In both cases, you can barely see his brother's face. And I didn't see Frank Stallone. Like, I hear the bell go off and I'm looking for him, but I don't see Frank Stallone at all. But, but yeah, what's his name? His brother. Oh, wait a minute. I wrote this. No, I just did a copy and paste. For some reason, they both say Frank Stallone.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So I guess he has his father's name Frank and his brother's name Frank. I guess it's Frank Stallone Jr.
Yeah. But that was like Rocky's actual father who rang the bell.
Yeah. No, not Rocky's father. Sylvester. Stallone's father.
Yeah. Right. Oh, my bad.
Sylvester Stallone's father had rang the bell, and then his brother was
Stallone,
the lead singer of the street band that passes.
I see. He's like bringing the family along with him.
Right. As you do. So, and this was the highest grossing movie of 1976. So yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah. It was,
and at the same time, like it came out in December too. So I'm like,
right.
Highest grossing film of 1970. So it must have still been in theaters in 1977, and it's like,
right.
Wow.
So that's it for the trivia, and after this musical tone, then we're gonna go ahead and talk about what the critics thought. And we're back. We're going to see what the critics have thought about the movie Rocky. On Rotten Tomatoes, critics gave it a 91%. The audience score is surprisingly 69%. So that's kind of weird. But on IMDb reviews, it has an 8.1 out of 10. It's like one of the highest reviews I've ever seen on IMDb. Yeah. So I want you tell us what the first couple of critics thought about the movie.
Well, Kathleen Carroll from New York Daily News says, like the movies of Frank Capra, Rocky is a glowing tribute to the human spirit, a chin-up reminder that the decent little guys of the world often accomplish the impossible, if only because they try so hard. And Richard Schickel of Time Magazine, the story is achingly familiar, and though Stallone has a certain power, he is certainly not the subtlest actor to crawl out from under Marlon's overcoat.
Right. So I can see where he's coming from, but it's they're both relatively positive reviews. I try to get like reviews that are both positive and negative, but they're both kind of positive on this take. So Cole Smithy from ColeSmithy.com wrote, Rocky struck a nerve with the American audience at the time because it spoke directly to a 70s era lower middle class dream of success that has since been exploded into a billion pieces. So I guess he's trying to say there are a lot of people that are doing movies like this. I don't know. I haven't seen a whole bunch of movies like this. And then Vincent Canby from New York News wrote, the screenplay of Rocky is purest Hollywood make believe of the 1930s, but there would be nothing wrong with that. But had the film been executed with any verve, and I had to look that word up. Verve means like vigor or something like that. And I think he's relatively wrong at this point. That Rocky was a great movie. It had a lot of spunk. It had a lot of verve, as he would say. And it was. I thought the film was extremely well executed.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was well executed, and it kind of left you like on the edge of your seat. Like at the end of the movie, it's like, you know, you're excited for what's to come, for what comes next. I guess for me, you know, watching this movie, like, you know, 30, almost 40 years later, like I watched it. 2014 was the first time I saw the movie, and you know, I knew that there was, you know, Rocky 2, 3, 4, 5, you know, so but like at the end of the first movie, like I'm on the edge of my seat, you know, waiting for, you know, what's to come next. And I'm actually surprised that the critical score, 91%, which I think, you know, Rotten Tomatoes, you know, I personally have nothing against Rotten Tomatoes. I think a lot of times they do tend to be a little overly critical of certain films. And a lot of times the audience score is like higher than the critical score. So, and they will seldom ever actually give a movie 100%. Like I think even Avengers Infinity War is like 87%. So if Infinity War got 87% and Rocky's ranked higher than that, then you know that, you know,
Right.
you know that Rocky is definitely like a cinematic classic. You know, I feel like, you know, the audience score in this particular case, I don't really think that the audience score is accurate in my opinion. I kind of lean more towards the critical score in my own personal opinion of the film. Although a lot of times I do try to look heavily on that audience score to see what are the fans actually saying about it, and
right.
not just a bunch of, you know, uh, Roger Ebert level film critics. You know,
Right.
it's like, you know, are the fans enjoying the film?
Right.
So
And
it's
also,
good.
yeah, and with certain films, you got to take account of what the audience is. So, like, I noticed that there are a lot of in a lot of religious movies that critical scores tends to be quite low, and then the audience score is like super high, and you kind of see that in the same way of certain genre films or certain sometimes in black movies, black cinema, you see like a lower critical score and a much higher audience score because
Right.
the audience for whom that film is intended, the filmmakers know who their audience is, and that's who they're making
Right.
it for, right?
Yeah.
So
like,
that's why you see a lot of times you see that disparity. So
yeah.
that's it for Rocky. Finally, Rocky is, as of this recording, available on AMC Plus if you have that service. That's it for today. Please join us next week where I have another special guest host, Jose, aka Cupcake, frequent contributor to the Not a Bomb podcast, and a co-host of his new podcast, Watch Skip Plus, where he and his co-host Justin, the Cinemasochist, watch movies and then advises you whether you should watch it or skip it, and then they add a little something to the show that they call the Plus. Follow us on Twitter or TikTok at Backlick Cinema, or Facebook or Instagram at Backlick Cinema Podcast for updates. Don't forget that you can contact us with any questions, comments, or suggestions at fanmail@backlickcinema.com. So, my man Morgan Cobbs, do you have any additional plugs you want to say again where people can find you on social media?
Well, you can definitely, as I said before, you can definitely follow my Instagram at Cobbs _corner _ podcast. That's where I'll be posting Like whenever I upload a new episode, I will do a post about that episode, and I'll maybe even like include an audio segment from that episode. So definitely check out my Instagram and so yeah, like on my Instagram, like that's where I'll be posting also like updates. Like I am in school now, so I think historically, like I've uploaded like every Friday. So some weeks I might skip. I might skip a week here and there. I might end up having an upload schedule of every other Saturday. I think that's what I might end up doing. But definitely follow my Instagram. I'm more heavily on the Instagram side of things. You can follow my TikTok as well. Cobbs Corner Podcast, all lowercase, no spaces, no underscores. Just Cobbs Corner Podcast. Follow my TikTok for updates as well. You can contact me with any questions, comments, or suggestions I forgot to mention earlier. I just have my regular email, cobbscornerpodcast@gmail.com, with all of your, comments or suggestions and just thoughts on the content that I create. So that's all I got for plugs. Oh, and I guess you could also follow me by my personal Instagram account, Future Mechanical Engineer. That's future_mechanical_engineer, where I just kind of post whatever honestly, mostly stuff having to do with, school and life and various things. So, yeah, thank you for having me, Zoe. I've had a lot of fun on this episode.
Thanks for coming along. One last time, if you like the show, then please help us grow. To do this, you can subscribe to the show, rate us, write a review on Spotify, spotchaser.com, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast app. And I know you've enjoyed our guest, Morgan Cobbs, so please find him at his podcast, Cobbs Corner, wherever you listen to podcasts. Believe me, it matters. Be safe. Share a movie with yesteryear with your family. Hug your loved ones. And if you're going to be anything, be outstanding.